This video is for grammar lesson. It's for Unit 5, Week 1. And this week we're going to be talking about some topics that we've covered before. So this is kind of a review week. I want you to take some notes in the grammar section of your 5-subject notebook. What I want you to do is make sure you cover what a clause, an independent clause, and a dependent clause are in this section in your 5-subject notebook. You can add examples if you need to do so. Okay, so let's first review subject and predicate. Remember, the subject is the who or the what of a sentence, and a predicate is what the subject is or does. Now, a clause is just a group of words that has a subject and a predicate. Here's an example of a clause. The house is blue. This next one is not a clause because it's missing the predicate. And the clause here is that blue house. Well, we know that it's not a clause because it does not have that predicate. It does have the subject of house. Okay, there are things called independent clauses. An independent clause just has one complete sentence and one complete predicate, and it can stand alone as its own sentence. In other words, it's a complete thought, and if you read it, it makes complete sense. So here's a short one. He was late. So we have our subject of he, and what was he? He was. And then late just describes what he was. So we're in a good shape. We have a complete sentence there, or a complete thought, so this is an independent clause. On the other hand, we have things called dependent clauses, and these are a little bit trickier, but when you add them, it makes your writing so much more interesting. So a dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate, but does not make a complete thought. It's usually introduced by a word that we call a subordinating conjunction. And subordinating means beneath a conjunction, or it's telling you that it's not quite as strong as the actual independent clause. So it's kind of like second place. So sometimes subordinating things are second place. So these dependent clauses usually start with if or because and sometimes since. These are subordinating conjunctions because they tie the independent clause and the dependent clause together. So here's a couple of examples. Because he was late for work, well, this is a dependent clause because we need to know what happened. And we don't know because we don't have that independent clause to tie it to. So if we wanted to, we could say, because he was late for work, he missed the best parking spot, or something like that. Or because he was late for work, his coworkers were mad at him, or things like that. So we have to tell what happened or why something happens. So in this one, we have if she finished her story. Well, we started with if, so there's that subordinating conjunction. And we just don't know what did she do because if she finished her story. So it might be if she finished her story, she would make $1 million. Or if she finished her story, she could go to the movies. Something like that, which would be our independent clause because they have both a subject and a predicate and makes a complete thought. So here's some more examples of dependent clauses. And what I did here is took them and tied them to an independent clause. So right here we have she will sing if Mike plays his guitar. So here's our subordinating conjunction, if. So that tells us if Mike plays his guitar is a dependent clause. So that means she will sing has to be an independent clause in order for the sentence to make sense. So if we just separate it off if Mike plays his guitar, we could just read she will sing, and that would be a complete sentence. But if we read, if Mike plays his guitar, that makes no sense because we don't know what will happen. The next sentence says, Heather can go to the dance because she finished her project. So in this case, Heather can go to the dance would be an independent clause. But the next phrase, because she finished her project, we're missing something. We're missing some more information to finish it. So it has to be tied back to that independent clause. All right, here's our subordinating conjunction because. Because he was stuck in the tree, the cat meowed loudly. And finally, if you put away the groceries, I'll wash the dishes. So I'll wash the dishes could be its own sentence, but not if you put away the groceries. That's dependent. Okay, check your notes. Make sure you've gotten what those three things are: the clause, the independent clause, and the dependent clause, and maybe a couple of examples to help yourself remember. When you've got that done, you may head on to your next item. You may end the video now.